Today we're gonna get a little bit messy, and I'm not talking baking messy because I don't go into the kitchen, but what we are gonna do is get full of thread. So I need you to go toss on something that you don't mind getting just covered in threads. And we are going to work on how to make a couple of items from your closet look more expensive. So we're gonna take pieces that maybe you got on Amazon, at H&M or Forever 21, or that are vintage, and we're either going to update them or make them look more expensive. And we're going to do that with a very simple sewing hack. And all you're gonna need is seam ripper. So I have little snips. These are tiny little scissors, or if you have more of a classic seam ripper, we're gonna do that. And you may need a couple of notions, things like buttons, lace, other fabrics, things like that. So take a second, grab something you want to update. For me, it's this trench coat, and we are going to start our first sewing tutorial. One of the things about fast fashion that give it away as part of a fast fashion item is their notion. So notions are all of the extras. They're the things that you need to put a garment together. Things like buttons, zippers, clasps, little things like this would all be considered notions. So I have this trench coat that I believe I got from Amazon like a couple of years ago. And you can see here that these buttons are just cheap plastic, like black, probably cost 3 cents per button. And you can see here on one of the epaulets, the buttons have popped off. Not super well sewn. This is giving it away that it's more of a cheaper garment. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna upgrade those buttons with buttons that I found at my local fabric store. So these ones, I liked them better because they have a little bit more dimension in the actual button themselves. So it's giving a little bit more detail to an otherwise pretty classic coat. Now it doesn't have to be the brown buttons. Obviously you can do whatever you want. If you are upgrading a coat, buttons are the easiest way to add a little bit of your own personality and your personal style. So pea coats, trench coats, anything that has a button closure, I would say look at a thrift store, your local craft store. Find some buttons that really feel like you or really make the garment feel a little bit more fun, elevated, put together, whatever your style words are. And this is how we're going to do it. So you're gonna start by counting the number of buttons on your coat to make sure that you have enough to go through. So in this case, I have 3 on this side and then 3 on the other side because it is a double-breasted jacket. And then I also have 2 on the epaulets. Keep in mind that you might have some extras on the sleeve. So in this case, there is a plastic ring here, which I also might actually trade out for a metal one. So in all fairness, we need 8 of these buttons, which I have here. Then, very simple, you're gonna start by cutting off all of the buttons that are there. Now, you'll notice how there's a couple different ways to sew on a button, and I'm going to go through it because honestly, I've had plenty of people say that they can't sew on a button, and it's honestly pretty simple. So when you're sewing on a button, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can do it with going around all the same side. So I will put up a example here, or you can crisscross and go backwards. And you'll have like kind of like a diagonal or an X of thread. You can see how easily these are just hopping right off with a couple of little snips. One thing I will say is when you are playing with the lining of the fabric, be very careful and very mindful. Most of the time on a fast fashion piece, the lining is quite thin and or fragile. So you may want to just be a little bit more cautious of the pointed part of your snips, because that is where you are going to rip inside of your garment, and that's not what we want to do. So then we are going to take your buttons. Now your buttons, these ones are held together with it's like a metal fastening, so we're going to take those apart. A couple more things you need for the next part of this tutorial is your thread and a needle. So grab your needle, grab your thread. The one thing I will say about your needle is make sure that it is not so big that you can't put it through your buttons, or this is more importantly for your beads and for your lace. So if you have a thicker needle, you may want to take a look at what kind of notions you're adding, what kind of extras you're adding to your piece. Now, what I do is I actually double thread my needle when it comes to buttons because I do want it to be quite secure. You don't have to do this, especially if you're working on something where the buttons are more decoration than actual utilitarian. However, because I'm working on a jacket, I really do want it to have some strength to it because I'm going to be playing with those buttons quite often, actually. Not the end of your threads, and you'll be able to see where you took your buttons off, and that is where we're going to put them back on, assuming you liked the fit of it. Now, if you didn't like the fit of your garment, then you can mess around with where the buttons are and play that way. The way that I like to sew my buttons is in an X. So essentially you are going through each hole of the 4 holes in your button in a X pattern. So you're going to create a little cross in the middle, and we're looking to have about between 5 and 7 times around in your buttonhole. So just keep crisscrossing into the X, and as you can see, I'm already getting full of thread, so I told you we were going to get messy. So once you've put your thread through a bunch of times, and then from the outside of the button, you are going to go through the hole of the button, but not through the hole of your fabric. And then you are going to wrap thread around the button, again, 5 to 7 times until you create a little stance. Now what we're doing here is we're making it easier for when you use that button for the buttonhole to have somewhere to sit. So the other half of the garment is going to sit between the button itself and the fabric that you're using. One other thing that I will mention when you are changing out buttons is make sure they are around the same size as the button you are replacing it with. This is because the buttonhole itself was designed for a certain diameter, so you may want to check it out, or at least try on the button through the hole before changing them all out, or go for one that's quite similar in diameter. And there we go. Now you're gonna have this beautiful new button, and I am going to movie magic this, and then you'll see the whole thing put together. When it's all said and done, you have your brand new or newly improved piece that you can then style as you normally would, or find new ways to play with your style. I will give you a couple of examples of how I style my new and improved trench coat. We're gonna put on the new and improved trench coat with its fun little button. Now, the reason I like wearing a trench coat is because it adds a little bit of structure, and I almost want to say like class. Like it adds a little bit of sort of like old luxury, quiet luxury, sort of like money situation to a outfit that's otherwise really fun and quirky. So I could wear this outfit with a different style of jacket, and that would give a whole different look. This one, because we are going with a motorcycle jacket, in the faux leather, is very masculine on masculine because the jumpsuit itself is made out of a corduroy, so it's got a little bit more weight to it, a little bit more structure, and then we've added another sort of masculine element to it. So, but instead with the trench coat, although we still have some of those masculine elements, we still have the epaulets, we still have some of those more traditional masculine features, it's a lot drapier here. So we're taking a much more feminine and classic element, and we're mixing it with the quirky masculine jumpsuit. So there we have it, your simple DIY for less than $10 in probably about 15-20 minutes of your time. So there you go, you can really see the new button elements.